Hi, I'm Jules. So today we're going to talk about publicity and why it is the strongest option for small businesses who have limited budgets. If you have an editor or a journalist saying this product or this service is really great, it's endorsing it for you and giving your business a little bit more credibility perhaps than advertising will give you as well. I guess one of the things that you need to think about if you're going to do PR is that you really do need a point of difference. Now that can be quite creatively constructed. So if you think that your business is the same as everyone else's, there is nearly always a way that we can spin it, for want of a better word, to make it sound interesting. But ultimately, PR is, do you know what I've just, ultimately PR is very effective if it's targeted and pitched right, and I'm really sorry, I haven't pressed my button, so there's the slide that goes with what I've just said. And you can see that cute little diagram at the bottom where if it's an ad, you're saying, we are great, we're a great company. If it's PR, it's actually somebody else saying you're a great company, and we know what that's like when it comes to word of mouth with friends, etc., that you tend to believe it if someone else has told you that it's great. Okay, so the next slide, if I get my act together, is PR right for you? Well, I guess I've got the wrong page out. Okay, so there are some things that are easier to PR than others. Obviously, if you have a new startup or it's a new product or it's a new service, automatically that makes it interesting to people. Launching a new product or doing anything that's new will automatically give you that edge. However, you may also have a product that's genuinely interesting, gorgeous, you might have fantastic photography. All of that makes it very credible for the media. Perhaps you're an expert in your field, or you can position yourself to be an expert in your field. And this can be where you can offer tips, basically. This can be, you could be a hairdresser and that you give tips on how often people need to go to the hairdresser, or how frequently they should colour their hair, or whatever that way. It may also be that you might be an expert in social media, in which case you can offer tips about how small businesses or businesses should use social media. Another good reason to know whether PR is right for you is if you don't have very much money, because if you don't have much money, then advertising is really taken out of the equation, which really leaves you with PR as being the best and most effective way for you to create awareness for your business. Of course, if you have a national market, that can be even more effective, mainly because if you're going to magazines particularly, they have a national audience. So they want to know that if someone in Perth or someone in Adelaide or Queensland wants to buy your product or service, that they can access it. So having distribution nationally, whether it's a website or a product, makes PR very effective as well. However, there are some products and services that aren't particularly sexy, and we have, for example, here, and please, I hope I'm not offending anyone, but if you're an accounting firm or you're an IT firm, or you work in an area that we say is maybe slightly not so sexy as other ones, you might need to be a little bit more creative, or perhaps PR is not the answer for you and you should be looking at other ways of marketing your business. So how do you do it? Well, this is a very simplistic way, but I just wanted to run through the sort of process for doing your own PR. Firstly, you need a good media release, and I think you probably all know that. One of the things that you have to be really aware of is that a media release needs to be well written, which means your spelling and your grammar needs to be perfect. If you're not good at writing, then get someone else to write it for you. I will get into this in more detail later on, but we also, through Handle Your Own PR, either can write the media release for you, or we have a service where you write it yourself and you can send it to us and we can tweak it for you and just make sure that it does fit the format and looks right. So once you've got a good media release, in the media release you need to have a catchy headline. Ideally, it's something that maybe is a play on words, or it's a pun, or it's posing a question that you will answer in your first paragraph. Ideally, you don't cover more than 5 points in your media release. I know there is a temptation to put absolutely everything about your business into a media release, but the point is to try and get the most interesting points across to the journalist, and then if they're interested, they can always come back to you for more information. The first paragraph, as it is if you read a newspaper or any other article, is crucial. You have to get to the point. You have to explain what it is that your business does or your product does, and why it's so great for people, and that needs to be in the first paragraph in case people don't read any further. We always say to lead with a great image. Now, photography is key in PR. There is no point taking a couple of shots with your iPhone and hoping that that will work, because invariably they will bypass it because they need a good shot. So having said that, I guess I should clarify a little bit. If you have a product, then you really need to have great photography, and ideally you've got two kinds of shots. You've got one which is what they call deep etch, so it's on a white background where it's kind of cut out, and you've got one in a lifestyle situation where the journalist can see someone using your product. You know, if it's a baby's toy, then show a baby using it. If it's a medical solution to something, show someone being treated with it. Keep going down the list. We've also then include a relevant quote. Journalists love quotes. It can be a made-up quote, but normally somewhere in the second or third paragraph. It's nice to have a quote either from the owner. If it's all gone dark, it's because the sun's gone out. There we go, got a bit of light. So to try and include a quote can be great. You could also use a quote from a client or somebody who has used your service, or perhaps you have someone with a bit of high profile, or somebody who's the head of a particular industry that thinks your product or service is great. Quote them. If possible, and obviously if it's a product that will be harder, but if you've got a business or a service, try to offer someone for an interview. That could be you. If it's not you, it could be someone that you word up on your business who can be a spokesperson. But if you can have someone to interview, the newspaper journalist might be interested in doing the interview, but certainly it opens up radio and TV to you, which otherwise it is very hard to do if you don't have a spokesperson. Weirdly, I've put this quirky little thing in there, attach low-res images. If you're sending an email out to a journalist with a media release on it, you don't want to clog their inbox with high-res images. So you really want to put just a web quality image, 26 kilobytes, something like that, into your email, and then offer the high-res version if they're interested, and then you can send that to them separately. And again, I've repeated, my notes aren't great, that you need to have a great pick for interviews. And for interviews, you need a biography as well, but I think I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. So next slide. What's your angle? Now, in this, on this slide, I'm going to specifically talk about how to write a media release. We're trying to find a newsworthy angle from your business now. So I'm going to give you some ideas of angles that you can look at and try and work them into your own ideas. And I've also got a couple of examples. So I'll just run through these with you now. Of course, bearing in mind that the angle that you decide to pitch to the media will be crucial to your success. If you don't pick the right one and it's not newsworthy, they will just bypass it. So obviously the first thing, which I've mentioned a few minutes ago, is it new? Often that will be enough on its own to get you considered. So do let people know if it's brand new. Do let people know if it's unique. Is it beautiful? And if so, do you have great photography to distribute? Now, if you think of all the homewares magazines, think of the weekend newspapers, and think even of sort of gorgeous design websites, they are all looking for beautiful photography and beautiful products to feature. So if it's beautiful, then you can build up on that. Is the product or service of benefit to the audience of the media that you're targeting? Now, that is kind of a weird way of me saying it, and I think I've put it in a better way. For instance, we work with a guy called Terry Ryder who writes the Ryder Report. Terry specialises in providing investors with reports on where is the hot new place to buy an investment property. The media absolutely love him, and of course they do, particularly the real estate media, because they are looking for an expert, and this is of absolute benefit to their audience. Their readers want to know what they should be doing with their real estate, so there is a great fit there. Another person who's tried a little bit of DIY PR was a business called Pricing Profits. Again, he went out to the business media to say, are you pricing right? Did you know there's a science behind pricing your products? And for that reason, again, it was a benefit to their audience, so he got lots of coverage. Have you given an old idea a modern twist? So that's, have you put a spin on something that really is an old-fashioned idea? Is it topical? Does it relate to something in the news at the moment? And of course, politics being very high up, if you've got something that relates to some of the policies that have just been changed, or you have something to do with, I don't know, does your business have the X factor? Something that is relevant and that's in the news at the moment, then immediately it makes it very attractive to the journalists. Are there any celebrity involved? Do you have celebrities using your products or services? If you know you do, you do need to ask their permission if to use their names. So you need to send them an email going, or you know, a letter saying, I hear you've got our product, we're so delighted you've got it, would you mind if we mention that you're using it as well? Often they won't mind at all, sometimes they will, but that's one way of doing it. The other way, of course, just quickly while we're on celebrities, is you can offer free product to your celebrities and wait to find out whether they're using it, and maybe they get snapped by the paparazzi. So it's not the most effective way of doing PR, but it can be useful depending on what your product is. Does your message have a green or environmental component? Bearing in mind that eco-friendly, sustainable products and services are very much topical at the moment, and the media love them and are often doing features on new eco products or new sustainable products. If that is relevant to your product or service, then definitely make the most of it. That's a great angle to go out with. Does the founder have an interesting life story? Perhaps if it's you who set up the business and there's an interesting story behind it, or a story that led you to set up the business in the first place, that can be newsworthy. Did the business, I'm just going to whip through some of these because there's a lot of them. Did the business come from a necessity or a mistake? Was there some quirky reason that you started the business? Will it save money? Be careful with this one because everyone claims that they can save money, but is it a new way to finance something? Is it offering a more affordable way of people accessing this particular product or service? Is there an educational angle? Is there something that you can teach people as a result? Are you an expert that's able to be interviewed on particular topics? And bear in mind that there are almost every niche industry has got some kind of media that are feeding into that industry. So if you are working in the insurance industry, you could certainly do opinion pieces about the insurance industry or about what people need to watch out for and send it out to insurance media. And they will most likely print it because they are always, I mean, one thing you always have to keep in mind with PR is that journalists are desperate for content. So it's not a pain to them that you're contacting them and asking them if they'll run a story. If it's a good story, they will be delighted to run it. Are you able to offer products or services for an audience giveaway? Now, this is one of the easiest and can be one of the most effective ways of getting coverage. Bear in mind that if you're a website or a magazine, a lot of them are trying to give away products each month because their readers like the prizes and the giveaways. We've had Handle Your Own PR clients actually that have had skincare products, for instance, and they had loads of samples, and they went to a health and nutrition magazine and managed to set up a deal where they got a double-page spread about their product that was on the subscription page, that was created as a subscription page for the magazine, where they said, if you buy a subscription to our magazine, you will get samples of these products. Well, that's a win-win for everyone. And if you think about that as a way of getting coverage, it can be really, really effective. Another one is if you have a florist, you might want to offer some flowers to give away on the local newspaper. That will immediately mean that they promote it, so they're putting your logo and your business name out there, and the cost for you is minimal because it's only the cost of the product. Lastly, not lastly, but is your product, service or business part of an emerging trend? Obviously, if it's to do with social media, eco, and all those other things that I've mentioned, that is relevant. Has it been successful overseas, or are you opening overseas branches? Again, that can work really well. Australians like to know that if somebody has taken on, say, the distributorship for a new product that's been huge in the UK or in America, let the journalists know that this is now in Australia. That is relevant as well. And of course, last but not least, but always a beauty, if you've won any awards, that's a great angle to go out with. If your product has, if you have, that really gives you something meaty to go out to the media to talk to about it. So hopefully that will give you some ideas. Hang on, something funny happening on my laptop. Okay, some common mistakes. And these are really common, but they will make quite a big difference to your PR campaign. So make sure that your grammar and spelling is spot on. Honestly, there is nothing that will get on get a journalist's goat more than you spelling there and there wrong. Know the difference between they are doing something and this is their product. Know where to put your apostrophes. Always put capital letters at the beginning of sentences. I mean, I know some of this is really obvious, but a lot of people forget to do it. Make sure you have great photography to support your story. Now, I've got a great little anecdote behind this because there is an argument, and I'd say it's a fair one, that if you're talking to the business media, you don't necessarily need a photograph. You've got the article there, you've got a link to your website, you're offering an interview, why would you need a photograph? When we launched Handle Your Own PR, which I did in conjunction with my then business partner Simone, we obviously sent a media release out to all the media. We got a great story in the Herald Sun and, no it wasn't actually, it was the Age and Sydney Morning Herald in the small business section, where they talked about the launch of Handle Your Own PR and how great it was for small businesses. And we'd sent in a beautiful photo that we had taken professionally of us looking gorgeous. Then about 3 weeks later, it was a weekend, and we got a call saying that we were going to feature in the paper the next day, and we were sort of like, this is great, obviously. And we waited for the article to come out, and you would not believe it, but anyway, it was almost a half page in the Age and Sydney Morning Herald with a photograph of Simone and I that was about as big as an A4 sheet of paper. And when we spoke to the journalist afterwards and went, how did that get in, particularly because you'd already run it, we had this beautiful situation where the chief of staff on the weekend is not the same as the chief of staff during the week, did not realise the story had run, was looking for a story that had a great photograph, came across ours and thought that they would run it again just because of the photography. So I guess there's a lesson to be learned in that. If you can get a great photograph of yourself or do something that's a bit quirky, they might run your story for a second time, or definitely you get a better chance of them running it in the first place. Don't be a stalker is a theme that you will see throughout all of our messages, and it's mentioned on the website as well. What we're saying there is once you've sent a media release to a journalist, give them time to absorb it. You are more than welcome to contact them again if you haven't heard from them to say, you know, did you get this email and what did you think of it? And often to do that, by the way, what I'll do is I'll forward the same email that I sent them so they can see when I sent it the last time and just say, just checking that you received this the first time. But don't start ringing every day. Don't start ringing twice a week even. Just give them a few days to absorb the story. Remind them about it in case they've put it in their pile of I must get back to this and haven't got back to it. Maybe you do one more another week or two later, but that's it. After that, you've really got to stop and accept that they weren't interested in that angle. You could go back with a different angle. I have spoken to many journalists and no one minds being repitched to with a new angle, but don't keep going back with the same story or they'll end up putting you on their blocking you from their email. Another key thing when you're writing a media release or doing a media PR campaign is to make sure you include where people can buy your product and how much it costs. Sounds crazy, but you know, if they're going to write an article and they're going to say that there's this fantastic new type of stool that's out and that it can be purchased for $69 but doesn't tell you where to buy it, then it's near as useless. And then at the bottom of the media release, you always have to put your own contact details so that the journalist can get hold of you if they want to ask for more information. Try to create an interesting, catchy headline for your release. Don't put, you know, off the top of my head, I don't know, save money now or, you know, the best service in town. Any of those kind of cliched headings are not going to get any cut through at all. You really want to play around with your words a little bit. And last but not least, but also crucial, remember your manners. So few journalists get thank yous for the articles that they write that if you go back to them and say thank you very much, they will remember you, or certainly they'll really appreciate it. So it's always nice to call them back and say thank you so much, that made such a difference. You're much more likely to get them to do another story for you if they feel that they're really appreciated and that it made a big difference. They also love to hear, by the way, if you get a great response to it. So you might want to wait a couple of weeks after the article has gone out and then say, guess what, you know, our sales peaked and we made 200 extra sales and we so appreciate it, thanks so much. And, you know, if we send you another story, would you do another article for us? And they're bound to say yes. So, well, I think that they'd say yes, they don't have to, but to give you an idea anyway. Okay, next slide is when to start. Well, the obvious answer is there's no time like the present, and also when you're a bit zhuzhed up and motivated, you really want to get moving on it, because it's one of those jobs to do that if you don't get onto it now, you will say, I'll start next month, and you may never get around to it. Bear in mind that Christmas and the summer holiday features are being put together now by most of the magazines. The newspapers will probably not go onto Christmas and summer holiday until early December. And the same with websites, but magazines, some of them will be doing summer holiday features now. And then very quickly after Christmas is Australia Day, 26th, which is great for barbecues, summer products. If you have anything that really is about summer or Australian flags on it, anything like that goes out for Australia Day. And then you've got Valentine's Day, so anything to do with lovers, love hearts, red roses, chocolates, or anything else that's relevant. You know, you really need to get onto all of this sort of thing now, especially to plan and then be sending out. I mean, for Australia Day, I would probably send out in mid-November. And for Valentine's Day, I would be sending out late November, early December. Because they can always put it on file. But a lot of journalists will go away over Christmas, and so will try and get their Valentine's features done before they go, or at least know what they're going to cover in their features, so that when they come back they can just open the folder and start putting it all together. Remember, monthly magazines are put together a few months before the release date, which is exactly what I've just said. So monthly magazines probably work about 3 months ahead. Bi-monthly magazines will be working 4 months ahead, maybe. And there's a whole, you know, and then there's annual checklists and annual magazines. For instance, there's Cosmopolitan does a Cosmo Baby annual that comes out every, I think it's July, and they would start collecting stuff for that probably from January. Now, the next point is controversial, I guess. I have always said don't send out to the media on a Friday, and I rarely do, because I think that everybody sort of switches off around lunchtime on a Friday and tries to get everything done before lunchtime. No one really wants to think about new things at the end of the week, so we would always say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are good days to pitch. Mondays I wouldn't do it first thing in the morning because they probably have a production meeting or something, so it might just sit in the inbox with a whole lot of other emails. So Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday. Having said that, I did a talk at an expo last year with a journalist called Susie O'Brien, who I don't know, some of you may know from The Age. She also works in Adelaide, and she does Current Affair and some of those other shows, Sunrise, I think. And I came out with the don't send out to the media on a Friday, and she immediately contradicted me and said in newspapers, and this is in daily newspapers, there is normally a shift that comes in on a Sunday. So she said, send through on a Friday afternoon, and if you have presented a journalist with everything that they might need for an article to go in on Monday, then you have a really, really high chance. So I didn't know that, but she said, send through on a Friday afternoon. You will then get picked up by the Sunday afternoon shift, who are looking for easy stories to run in Monday's newspaper, and you've got a very good chance. So that's just a hint for Metro dailies. And then lastly, of course, when to start? Well, when you're ready. And in order to be ready, you need your product and service to be available on the market. There's no point sort of sending out a teaser and saying it'll be available next month, because they won't run the story until next month. You need to make sure that you have stock and staff ready to you know, handle any inquiries. Your website needs to be up to date. You need to have your great images ready to go as high-res images. When I say high-res, just so that you would know, it would normally be roughly a 1 to 2 meg JPEG is what I would call high-res. And if you're going to do interviews, that you have a spokesperson available and that you have written a biography of their background, because any person in radio is going to want to know a little bit about the person that they're about to interview. If you think about it that way, that's the kind of information that they'll be looking for. Now, what to expect? I have a feeling that I've got all my notes out of order, but anyway, I'll run through this very quickly with you. What to expect is obviously exposure on websites, newspapers and radio, which can all be immediate, because if you send out a media release today and a radio producer likes it, he might ask you to come on this afternoon. If you send one out to a website or a blogger, they might love it and put it up that day, and if you send it out to a newspaper and it's a daily newspaper, they could quite easily run it the next day. You can send out a release in the morning and be interviewed the same day, but exposure in magazines, as I've just explained, takes a little longer. The results will largely depend on what you're promoting and how media friendly that item is. So if you're sending out an opinion piece about the insurance industry and you're only sending it to, let's be honest, in the insurance industry there's probably, I don't know, let's say 10 magazines, then you might pick up 1 or 2 articles. If you have a beautiful new homewares product, a new type of chair, or a lamp or some cushions, and great photography, and you send that out to all the parenting magazines and newspapers, you may pick up 15 different articles out of it. So you need to be aware of what to expect in terms of results depending on how many media you've gone out to and how media friendly your article is. Of course, the other option is that you might be wanting to get an interview in the Metro newspaper in the business page section, in which case you may offer an exclusive, so therefore you're only looking for 1 article to come out of that pitch. Always allow the media a few days and up to a week before sending a reminder or a follow-up email. And then lastly, remember, PR can't be guaranteed. I mean, you just don't know whether it will work or not. And if it doesn't work, then you need to try another angle. You can increase your chances, though, by being prepared and also casting your net as wide as possible, which means if you have, for instance, let's use handle your own PR as an example. The obvious place that we would start marketing handle your own PR is to small businesses. But there are also lots of sort of sub target markets within that. So we might decide that we want to go to the arts media because lots of artists need to do their own PR. We may then decide that there's a whole mumpreneur market, so we might go out to the parenting media with a slightly different angle. We may decide that sorry, I just had a slight distraction then. You might decide that with handle your own PR, we might decide that we want to go out to business owners or advertising agencies to tell them that they could do their own PR. So therefore, we've now identified, say, 5 different target markets. What I would do is write my main media release and then tweak it slightly for each of those markets so that it is relevant particularly to those markets, and buy or send it out to 5 different media lists that are all targeting those specific markets. And make sure you have interesting news to share, obviously. So some more DIY PR hints. Crucial to doing your own PR is to have samples ready to offer the journalists. So what that means is if you've got a website that you're doing an online, say you're doing an online course, you would make sure that you have a free code that you can offer to journalists so that they can access it and try it out. If you have some beautiful products, then you may want to send them out to sample. If they're very expensive, no one is expecting you to send them out and give them away. You can ask for them back, or what we do sometimes, I do a lot of PR for, say, strollers and prams, some of which might be $1,500, is what we do is we offer people to review it and we send that stroller from one media to another. So Shopping for Baby may have it for a week, give it out to a reviewer, then a month later it comes back to them, and then we send it out to My Child magazine to their reviewer. So if it's a really expensive item, there are ways around it, and journalists are not expecting to be giving $1,000 worth of free stuff, but they do need to be able to see it, trial it. You know, maybe you have a showroom that they could nip into to have a look at it, whatever. Identify your target market and the media that they consume, but you can be clever, and a great example is that once we got a call out from journalists saying that they were doing an article on green products, as in eco-friendly, sustainable products, and we put a slight spin on it and said, we have actually got a green stroller that is the colour green as opposed to being eco, but of course you push a stroller. I mean, it is relatively eco. And we sent it through and they had a good old laugh and actually featured it for us. So, you know, you can put a spin on things if you think creatively. You need to obviously then get an up-to-date media list, either through Handle Your Own PR, let me blow my own trumpet, where we have loads of them on the site, or you can develop one yourself. I mean, PR, as I said, doesn't have to cost anything, it just takes time. So if you need to get or want to get into a certain magazine, you can look on their website to find out. Sometimes they have editorial contacts on the website. Often they'll have a phone number and you can ring reception and ask them. Or when you open or buy a magazine or a newspaper, they have what's called the masthead, which is a column normally inside the magazine that says this is the editor, you know, this is the arts writer, this is the fashion writer, this is the marketplace writer, and you can just you know, email them directly. When you send out your media release, I would always recommend that you actually cut and paste it into your email and then attach it as well. For that, the reason for that is that you've got to assume that journalists are, I was going to say lazy, but to be fair to them, they get so many emails coming through every day. Let's say they might get 200 a day, that if they're going to open your email, they need to see straight away what it's about. So rather than making them take the extra step of clicking and opening your attachment, why not put it there so that it's right there in their face? If there's a photo, then the photo's front, that might capture their eye, and then the media release is immediately below it. Try not to send out BCC emails to the media. They do not like it. And there are exceptions, which I'll tell you about in a second. But really what you should do is cut and paste, or mail merge or whatever, and say, Dear Mary, Dear John, Dear whatever, and make it personalised to them. The exception to that rule is a lot of the lifestyle magazines are happy for you to send out a photo of your product, which needs to have, this is the price, this is where it can be born, and here's a, say, 3-sentence description of it. And you could send that out to all the lifestyle media. They expect that this is going everywhere and they won't be concerned that it's not exclusive to them. Oh, I've got some questions. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just finish this slide so I don't confuse myself, and then I've got some questions here which I'm very excited to answer. Okay, don't be a stalker, which I think I've done to death, so we know that. Remember the different lead times for monthly mags compared to weekly magazines, compared to newspapers, online, and TV and radio. Obviously, they get shorter and shorter as you go down that list. When you're doing PR, trial it and give it time. Make sure that you try lots of different angles. If the first one doesn't work, then try again and try a different angle, because it can take a while to get the ball rolling. Now, I'm just going to go onto these questions, which I would love to answer. So the first one is Hui. I hope I've said Hui's name right, Hui J. What kind of images beside corporate headshots would be great for a business service? Okay, good example of that. And I mean, you can use stock photography for some of the business ones, but would be if it's a business service that has an obvious, it's not sitting down at a computer, but it's actually, say, you're offering to water plants in offices, or you're offering to come in and do massages for corporates or something, then obviously you would take a shot, a lifestyle shot of that happening in an office. Other than headshots, it can also be maybe a photo of you with a customer shaking hands. It could be a shot of a customer using your product, if that is going to give a good visual. So you just need to try and think outside the square, and you can go to stock photography for this, for a shot that will work really well with your image. I actually did, I did a PR campaign for a guy who made T-shirts for people that sweat a lot. And I can't remember what the name of what the name of that medical condition is, but it's for people who really, really sweat a lot. And he had no shots at all, and I didn't want to just put a photo of a vest, because I don't think a photo of a vest is particularly interesting. So we just took, I just went in and found stock photography of men in business shirts, kind of reaching up to, you know, write on a desk or something. Not right on a desk, right on a blackboard or something. So that kind of gives you the idea. You just got to try and think outside the square. Nicoletta, background story. I just wanted to ask if it's wise to steer clear of the hard luck stories. For example, my business ended up coming out of a car accident where I broke my neck and back, and started collecting things online because I was bedridden for months and recovering for several years. Is it wise to keep clear out of this sort of thing? Absolutely not, Nicoletta. That is a great newsworthy story. I wouldn't think twice about it. I would put that in your opening paragraph. I would make the most of it, and I tell you who would really love that, actually, to just tell you right now, Women's Day and New Idea love those stories about a life-changing event that has made you change course in your life. So I would definitely make the most of that. Sarah has asked, would love some more details regarding PR for TV. Anything that should be done differently when sending releases? Should they go to producers? Sarah, TV is slightly different, you're quite right. And I've got some more questions here in a minute, but anyway, no, hang on, let me. Okay, so when it comes to PR for TV, you want to ring the producer rather than send a media release. So producers like to be pitched to verbally, ideally, and they're quite open to it. And then if they're interested in your pitch, you then send them a follow-up email with a whole lot of details. You can try sending them an email, but I think that in the case of TV, a phone call is more effective. Often what you need to do for TV is think about how a story would be run and get all the elements together. So if you think that if it's, for instance, something about parenting, you might want to make sure that you have access to a couple of mums and a couple of kids that could also come on or be shot to fill out the story. Or if it's about, we pitched a story about surf coast businesses and the women that are running businesses and surfing during the day. For that, we made sure that we had 3 or 4 businesses that we grouped together to offer the journalists so that there is a reason for them to go down the coast and actually run this story. So that hopefully helps a little bit. David M., any tips for promoting technology products in the B2B marketplace? That is spooky, David, because I'm actually thinking about setting up a little seminar that's going to be specifically about this. Promoting technology products is difficult, but not impossible. The best way of going to the business media is to write opinion pieces. So I would say if you have a technology product that is solving a problem that you perceive in the industry that it's targeting, then go in and say, write some opinion pieces about, there is a problem in our industry. This is the sort of thing that is happening, and this is the reason why we have set up this service, and this is how this service solves this problem. So I hope that helps, but I am going to go into that in more detail in the next month or two and do a seminar, I think, specifically about B2B and technology products. Penelope W., trying to do PR for a range of clothing for midlife women. I love you. Not having much luck. Maybe my press releases need tweaking. How do you arrange that? Penelope, I think it's a great idea, so I'm surprised that no one has picked this up, particularly as you're targeting a niche market. We actually have a service if you want to send through your press release, and I'll have a look at it and let you know if I think it's wrong. One of the things that non-professionals do is you may be making it look too commercial, like it's a big ad for your product, rather than telling people why midlife women would need specific range of their own clothing. But I'm more than happy to help you with that one if you want to contact me. Karen P., how much is your media list and can it be industry specific? Karen, go onto our website. When you go into buy media lists, you will see we have them broken into categories, which are lifestyle, parenting, and news and business. Within each of those categories, we have a whole lot of media lists. For instance, we have ones that do health and fitness magazines, women's magazines, fashion, franchise media, small business media, eco green products, technology, IT media. It's all very niche, so go in and have a look at it. Christian A., I would like to know if when sending out a media release, is it best to target the editor or start a bit lower down the tree by reaching out to a journalist directly? If you know who would write your article, as in if you know what the specialty is, then it would probably, look, you can go to the editor. What editors do is they take your email and they will pass it on to the relevant journalist. If you know that you have got a fashion product, then go to the fashion editor. So if you know what I mean, so yes, editors are not too senior. You can't really get too senior. They will pass it down the line anyway. But if there is a specific, like a lot of the women's magazines have a lifestyle writer and a medical writer and a pet writer, find those ones if that is, you know, specifically what your product's about, and if you can't find it, send it to the editor and ask them to send it on for you. Jody G, in regards to fashion, is printed magazine exposure better or equally as effective as online and bloggers? And then you've gone online versus printed, but I'm not sure whether that's a typo. Anyway, with regards to fashion, listen, printed magazine exposure, I would say, is just as good as online. The only thing is that printed, I don't know why, but printed, I believe, still has that little bit more credibility than online, and there is no reason for it. And it would, and having said that rash generalization, it really depends on the online media. If you get it in Vogue online and you can't get it in Vogue magazine, I think you could consider that was a win. If you get it into Cool Hunter magazine because they've, you know, picked up on your fashion, and all you can get it into in terms of Australian media is, you know, the local newspaper fashion page, then obviously Cool Hunter is going to be a better one for you. So that really depends on which media. You really want to go for how many readers they have, how many unique views, etc., etc. Most websites will have that information somewhere in there. Shireen D, curious if it's okay to send the same media release to several outlets, or is it best to customise for each different media outlet? Shireen, most journalists like to think they're getting an exclusive. If you send the same media release to several outlets, you can do it if you kind of make it reasonably obvious. If it's a product, I wouldn't even think twice about it, and you've got great photography, cast that net as wide as you can. If you're trying to get an interview or an opinion piece into a prestigious newspaper, say you want to get it in the Fin Review, or into, you know, the Age or Sydney Morning Herald or the West Australian, depending on where you live, I would give them an exclusive and just ask one journalist. If they don't want to run the story, take that story and offer it to another one. But let each journalist have the opportunity for an exclusive. Kathy L, would like to write a book about Beechworth Bakery's owner. Any tips or suggestions for ghostwriters? Sorry, Kathy, I have no idea about ghostwriters. And I'm just going to do this last question, then go back to my slides. Nicoletta, media release and photo. I've produced an incredible video, about 2 minutes long. Is it worth sending a link to this? Yes. Yes, absolutely. So she also says that it's a high quality video and the businesses design a one-off pieces of antique jewellery. Absolutely, send the link through. There's a very good chance that they will look at it, and obviously it'll sell the story to them if they do. I'm going to keep moving on with my slides now. So to conclude, you need to work out your target market first, and then you need to research all the media that reaches that market. Now, as we've said, there may be 2 or 3 markets that you can find as your target market, and then all the media that reaches that market. What are they reading? What are they watching? What are they listening to on the radio? Those are the media that you want to target. Write a good media release or pitch. I always say, sound excited. There is nothing like going, this gorgeous product or this, you know, I'm so excited to be doing this. Journalists get excited if you're excited, and journalists are interested if it's not a yawn, you know, same old email. Where possible, ring journalists and sell your story angle, but be very careful about deadlines. So if I ever ring a journalist, the first thing I say is, hi, it's Jules here from Handle Communications or Handle Your Own PR. Is this a good time to ring? Sometimes they'll say, I'm on deadline. I go, fine, call you back tomorrow. Sometimes they go, yeah, it's fantastic. Sit down and have a chat. And so, just do them the courtesy of asking first. Always keep a spreadsheet of what it is that you have said to journalists, when you have contacted them, and what they've said to you. I know it sounds really obvious, but if you send out to 10 journalists, you'll remember today and tomorrow what they said, but if you come back to it in 2 weeks, you might not remember which journalist said what. So literally, what we do is we have, as you'll see on our media list, there's sort of the media, the contact name, the phone number, the email address. I always add a column which is comments, and I say, contacted them on the 10th of the 9th, email bounced back, they're on holiday, call back on such and such a date, or they said yes, they'll look into it, they'll call back next week or whatever, and then I know what my next actions are going to be. Track your results and use them as a sales tool. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but if you're going to get an article in a magazine or newspaper, use it. Use it for, if you're selling to retailers, to tell them that it's going to appear. Tweet about it, stick it on social media, post it up, talk about it, stick it on your website. Just make it work as hard as it can. As I mentioned before, remember to say thank you if your story gets picked up. And don't give up. Just keep on going. If something doesn't work the first time, keep trying. And my last point is, if you need a little bit more help, you can check out our website. I have to say, I'm not particularly enthralled with how the website is looking at the moment. We are about to give it a whole new look and feel, but all the information is there at the moment. Particularly if you go into the Advice Centre and into how PR works and frequently asked questions, there is an absolute goldmine of information in there for you. We also sell great up-to-date media lists if you want to give it a go yourself. On the site, we teach you how to write a media release. We actually have got how to write the email that goes with it, how to embed your media release, what kind of photography, how big the files should be. Everything that you need is in there. You just need to go in and scout around a bit at the moment. And then hopefully in about 3 weeks, you'll be able to find it really easily. And also we are going to, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start interactive web consultations where you can talk to me about your business and I will answer specific questions about your business in small groups of no more than 10. I'm interested to know whether any of you would be interested in that. I'm thinking about doing it as particular niche target markets. For instance, we would do B2B technology as one of the subjects, but I would love to know if you think that you would be interested in partaking in this. Okay, and I've got some more questions. Actually, no, let me just finish my very last slide, which is the last but not least. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but Handle Your Own PR has got sister sites for the UK and the USA. If you want to try, and there is no reason why you wouldn't, if you've got a product that can be sent overseas or a service that can be downloaded or whatever, why not try some UK or USA PR? And you can go onto the sites. It's handleyourownpr.co.uk for the UK ones, .com for the USA ones, and have a bash at doing some PR overseas. There's no reason why you wouldn't. Now, I've just been told I've only got 10 more minutes, so I'm going to quickly run through these questions. Laura H. I sell sun protective children's clothing. The last PR I attempted had a lot of response saying, fantastic product, great idea, here's our media kits and the costs involved with advertising. Could this be, as you just mentioned, it's too much like an ad? I'd love for you to look at it and see whether I'm on the right track or have a lot of work to do to make it newsworthy. Laura, please do send it through to me. I'm happy to do the tweaking. We only charge $150 for me to have a look at it and make sure that it is right. However, I just want to give you a little insight into what's happening there that will be relevant to everyone. Often the editor of a magazine will receive a media release and he will or she will love the story and be intending on writing an article. She will then send it over to the advertising department saying, I'm going to write an article on this product, maybe you can get an ad. The best answer to go back to those people that are asking for advertising, I always say, is go back to them and say, listen, if you do I have no money at the moment, which is why I'm doing PR. If you write an article for me and it gets me a really great response, then as soon as I have money, it's your magazine that I will be advertising in. But I just am spending all my money on PR at the moment. I genuinely think this is newsworthy for your readers, so I'm going to have to decline the advertising. But if you want to run the article, and it does, as I said, it gets a great response, then absolutely, I will be back to you. Okay, so I'm just going to have to quickly ask here, have I already done those? No. Okay, some more questions. Shireen D. Curious if it's okay to send the same media release to several outlets or best to customise. I think I've already said, yes, you can send the same release to several outlets if it's a product. If it's something that you're trying to get an exclusive or an interview, customise it. Okay, could you please touch on the role and benefits of donations and sponsorships for PR? Kathy, I actually wouldn't mind having a conversation with you privately about this. I'm not quite sure what you're looking for in terms of media coverage when you're talking about donations and sponsorships. So if you want to contact me on Jules, Jules, at handle, handle.com.au, I'm more than happy to have a look and have a chat with you. Maggie N. My niche is grief and loss. Any ideas on best places to pitch to? I guess there is the women's magazines and things like that you could try, Maggie, but I probably need to know a little bit more about your market. My initial idea is that you would go to the retirees market because obviously they suffer a lot of grief and loss as people get older. and that they may immediately understand what your service or product is. But you could also make that quite topical, and you could actually, I'm not actually sure what your product is, but if it was about grief and loss, maybe you could write some articles about people handle it or the best ways to handle it and send that off to newspapers as well. Health and fitness magazines, there's a whole lot of different markets, but you probably just need to tweak your angle to fit that market. And I think that is all of my questions. Does anyone have any last ones, or am I saying bye-bye? I'm saying bye-bye. I've loved this, guys. I'm really looking forward to doing some more customized ones. If you've got any questions, please contact me. Let me know what you think. Okay, I'll speak to you later.